What could be more evil than Nazis? Producer J.J. Abrams dares to imagine an answer in Overlord, a thrilling, pulse-pounding action adventure with an unexpected twist set in Nazi-occupied France a mere hours before D-Day. Overlord follows a team of American paratroopers who come face-to-face with enemies unlike any the world has ever seen. You'll have to see it to believe it. Don't miss Paramount Pictures' Overlord in theaters November 9th. Rated R for strong, bloody violence, disturbing images, language, and brief sexual content.
Hey, this is Kenyon Drake. You're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from Draft.com Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, welcome back. Monday, October 22nd, Fantasy Footballers Podcast welcomes you in. It's going to be a great show. Have the weekly rewind, studs, duds, and more. How you guys doing?
Doing well. I'm excited for tonight's Monday Night Football game. I'm hoping that it is... I fear it's going to be very similar to Sunday Night Football, where one of the teams just can't
Holy
compete.
crap. Cincinnati, what happened?
Prime time.
Yeah, I know.
Bad Andy.
I tweeted this out.
Bad Andy. We'll get into that, too.
There's a new segment on today's show. I tweeted that out. Like, I genuinely forgot. Like, somehow, some way.
Because he starts playing pretty well, and he tricks you.
He is so – Andy Dalton is a plotter and a schemer. I have to remember – Foot Clan, help me remember this for the rest of my life, that when Andy Dalton has a primetime slate, watch out. Don't – like, it's at the point – there's such a long history of this that it's not a gimmick anymore. It's not a narrative street. Dude doesn't show up if it's a primetime game, and I'm not going to – if he's like, oh, it's a great spot, move him down a couple.
0-8 on Sunday Night Football under Marvin Lewis.
Yeah.
The Bengals are. And then they're somewhere in the high 20% chance of winning in any primetime game under Marvin Lewis. So
never tell me the odds.
Yeah, if I had to diagnose what happened to Andy Dalton in that game, obviously the defense, they showed up a little bit. But this is Kansas City. They started the game with 17 straight possessions where they hadn't forced a punt. So it was more than Kansas City. And I think he just got locked in on A.J. Green in one-on-one coverage. And once he got that into his head, there was no Tyler Boyd to start the game. They didn't use Uzama until the end of the first half. I think he got out of rhythm. I think you didn't use Boyd.
See, what happened?
And then they adjusted in the second half.
This is the classic situation where you've got a best friend. Your best friend is more handsome than you.
Yeah.
More well-off than you.
Mm-hmm. You relate to this, obviously.
Yes. Oh, look, my upbringing. I know all about this. And Andy Dalton looked over at Patrick Mahomes and thought, this isn't fair.
I can't do this.
Why can't I be you? And then he just completely imploded.
Why can't I roll out of the pocket the opposite direction and heave it 68 yards down the field on a laser beam?
A Submariner past 50 yards in the air.
I like the commentators informing us that Pat Mahomes was once thrown at 82 yards. It's like, I believe it.
Now, am I correct that there were no Showtime Mahomes comments last night?
Well, Booger wasn't there.
Yeah.
Driving it down your throat.
I like JJ's tweet where he said, hey, did you know that Pat Mahomes played baseball once? Like, if we have to hear that storyline ever again.
Whenever a football player plays in other sports. Yeah. I mean, because they couldn't go with the basketball one.
These are the 3 talking points you're allowed to have about Pat Mahomes. His dad also played baseball.
What?
All right, we have a jam-packed show, so we're going to get into it. Quick question of the day. We'll start here. What offense has impressed / surprised / disappointed you the most so far in 2018? Jason.
I mean, there's got to be like all three of us some shout out for the Chiefs, because it's just, if you saw it coming, unbelievable. But the one that has disappointed me, that's what came to mind, was the Broncos, because I did believe that Case Keenum would be better than he's been. I never thought Case Keenum's a world beater, but I did think he is an above-average quarterback that can get it done if he's got good weapons, and there are good weapons there. Emmanuel Sanders has been fine. Demaryius Thomas.
He's been very good.
Yes.
I wouldn't say he's been fine.
Well, I'm saying that from a standpoint of he is not in my disappointment because he's been good. But Demaryius Thomas, a clear-cut running game, and being able to start Case Keenum, I've been disappointed in the Broncos' offense because I thought they were going to be better.
Yeah, I will definitely tip my hat to Kansas City. I think Mahomes fighting through the early season schedule the way he did. I mean, I certainly believed in him, traded for him, believed in the long-term value. Didn't believe he would do what he's done through the first half of the season. I don't think anybody did. I'll go with disappointment as well, and that is what I'll call the Arizona catastrophe, because David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald, that combination, not only were they, perennial top 5 type of guys, top 10, Larry Fitzgerald in particular, 100-plus receptions, 2 straight seasons.
3 straight years of 1,000 yards, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where both of those guys were counted on, and Mike McCoy said, look what I can do. I mean, look what I can erase players from relevance. Now, so they take the cake for me. Mike, what do you think?
The most impressive to me has been the Chicago Bears. Their offense, we had talked about in the offseason that the way that team set things up was a masterpiece, in my opinion, over the offseason with the hiring of Matt Nagy. Great hire. You bring in Trey Burton so you can try and duplicate the offense that you had in Kansas City. This is great. You bring in Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel. I mean, you're putting humongous big-time weapons around your quarterback, and it was, for me, I didn't have the faith that Trubisky could get it done.
Oh,
that was
you got to have the faith in Trubisky, Mike.
Of course. That was my pause for concern.
We all knew Trubisky was going to be great. Stream of the week.
And Mitch Trubisky, wow, granted, is one of the strangest quarterbacks in the NFL to watch, who goes from just, you're like, holy crap, this guy he's the face of the franchise, and then the very next throw you go, they should probably bench that
this guy sucks.
But he's absolutely getting it done for the team and for fantasy purposes. So the Chicago Bears have been incredibly impressive after a little bit of a rocky start.
Trubisky, to me, the Jekyll and Hyde of Trubisky is this. When he executes the offense, like when he's a machine, when he's part of the machine, he's great. When he tries to do anything on his own, the questionable decision-making, the near end zone interceptions on a regular basis for him are atrocious. But yes, they've been very impressive. I wonder, though, when we go into next season, now you'll have, the resurrection of Goff, now the resurrection of Trubisky, with the hiring of these innovative younger head coaches. I mean, that narrative is going to permeate whatever teams bring in new names next year. No, without question, because it's bared itself out in fantasy relevance for 2 straight years. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Don't forget, you can subscribe over on YouTube, youtube.com/thefantasyfootballers. And check out the Instagram, the fantasy community over at jointhefoot.com, and the website is thefantasyfootballers.com. Let's get into the rewind.
Weekly Rewind.
Big news on Friday after we had recorded and put up that show. Carlos Hyde was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The implications, many of them, Carlos Hyde now a committee back in Jacksonville, a team struggling. And then Nick Chubb getting the opportunity in Cleveland, maybe some more opportunity for Duke Johnson. What was your reaction to this trade?
It was huge news for Nick Chubb, who came through. He had the touchdown, but I think that at this point, what the Cleveland Browns need, Nick Chubb can provide more of it than Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde's a fine running back, but Nick Chubb's got those young legs. He's got juice. That's why I tweeted out, I'm all in on Nick Chubb. I saw a lot of people were as well.
You spent more than a Kittle.
Yes, I did. Well, this was a pretty tilting
why don't you tell
week
what
for me in our league of record. I had talked about on the show, like, Nick Chubb is a stash to me because I do see him eventually taking over.
Yeah, you've been saying that in the studio for the last couple of weeks, like you want to say it on the show.
So put your money where your mouth was.
Yeah, so I finally had a bench spot. Like, okay, great, I can get Nick Chubb on my team. But what my team really needed was a wide receiver. Ted Ginn goes on the IR. I'm like, well, I'm gonna grab Cam Meredith or Traquan Smith because I need wide receiver depth. I don't know when Nick Chubb's gonna take over. I grab Cameron Meredith on Friday morning. And as you know, Friday afternoon, Nick Chubb became instantly the hottest commodity on the waiver wire. So I had him for free, dropped him, then had to use all of my fab just to get him back.
And it was worth it.
Yeah, I got him.
Do you feel like you didn't tilt spend all that fab to like?
Well, here's why
if you didn't have that situation, would you have spent $64 on?
Yes, I still would have. If I had not previously added and dropped
that's what
him,
I mean.
Yes, I still 100% would have looked at my fab. What do people have left? I'm going to outbid you, or I'm just going to put everything in and hope I get him. And this worked out because Foogland, like many of you, I had both Melvin Gordon and Gronk on my teams who on Saturday decided, we're just not going to play football. So very tilting week for me.
Yeah, you had, and the Melvin Gordon one in particular was troubling if you were on the West Coast. I mean, that game got started so early that if you didn't know or you weren't aware or you weren't ready to pivot, you got caught with your pants down.
You did.
Yeah, not everybody. I mean, I set an alarm at like 5:30 in the morning just to check, to get up just to check to see on Melvin Gordon, and not everybody takes fantasy that serious.
And then major injury news for the Patriots in general. Rob Gronkowski missed the game with a back injury. Some people have rumored this being a multi-week absence. We don't know yet, but he missed the game. And there isn't a natural fill-in at tight end on that roster, so you had to pivot to another team. Maybe it was a Uzama, maybe it's a Hooper, maybe it's Cameron Brate, but you had to pivot out of a stalwart on your roster. And then Sony Michel, really unfortunate, carted to the locker room during the first half of the game against the Bears, downgraded out, and we're waiting for injury news on Sony Michel.
Yeah, right off the bat, Pro Football Doc came out and said that he believes it is not a serious season-ending injury, that it'll be probably a short-term injury to the knee, a couple of weeks. That is so far in the early reports. They haven't got the MRI back, but the early reports confirm exactly that they don't believe it's a season-ending injury, perhaps some kind of sprain to the MCL, but we'll know more either by the end of the show or tomorrow.
Here's an interesting thing that was brought up because, look, you've got your opportunity to make moves right now. Somebody asked, would you trade James White away, the last man standing in that backfield, electric PPR machine? Would you trade him for David Johnson?
No.
No, I said no because he's such an established piece of a great offense as opposed to the upside of David Johnson with a terrible offense.
It's one of those names gonna get you moments.
Yes,
but if you could convert David Johnson into James White, I would do that.
No, I
would rather have James White for sure.
I got a brain bruise just thinking about that trade.
It made my heart hurt.
Yeah,
for sure.
But that's the name of the game. You cannot bury yourself in old narrative and expectation if you want to win as the season progresses. There's too many injuries.
You don't win a championship at the draft. It has been proven.
Well, maybe you grab Todd Gurley.
Okay.
You probably won your league.
I mean, lots of news. We can also move into some Lev Bell news. Jason Lockenfora says that the Steelers executives believe it's more likely he returns in Week 9. Did not report this morning. There you go.
Looks like you'll get at least another week of James Conner. So if you held out, congratulations for one more big week at least.
It looks like it's playing out to Le'Veon Bell is trying to control absolutely everything about his future, which includes the Steelers, the rumors at least of them trading him. The team has come out and said, ironclad, we are not trading Le'Veon Bell. I don't know if they're telling the truth or not, but if he signs his franchise contract before the trade deadline, they can trade him.
Exactly.
We'll try to fly through some more of this news. Jacksonville, Fournette's going to sit out through the bye. Do you think you get 1 week of relevance from Carlos Hyde, or no, because this offense is struggling so much?
1 week of mediocrity. I think he'll split with TJ Yeldon, and instead of really being an asset to be used, It'll probably ruin TJ Yeldon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carlos.
Yeah. Blake.
Thanks for getting traded, you dummy.
Sorry for your family having to move.
Blake Bortles. Benched.
Oh, man.
Benched. I heard rumors this morning about Derek Carr to Jacksonville because
This will fix it.
What are they doing? No,
that's just,
they can't possibly.
That's
got to
be just speculative, right?
Well, it's based on the yard sale mentality of John Gruden, and you know we've heard about Amari Cooper to the Cowboys. I think that Amari Cooper trade would have been more likely had they won this week against Washington. I still think it could happen, but
I mean that's going to a garage sale and looking at 2 lawn chairs like, oh, that one's got a tear. This one will make do for my house furniture.
Yeah, I mean, we can agree to disagree on that. Derek Carr is a much better quarterback than Blake Bortles. He is. He is a much. He's still on that. I would much rather have him.
I think the word "much" is the problem with the sentence. I believe he's a slightly better version of Blake Bortles.
Bortles West.
Sure.
Yeah, but what happens with Blake Bortles? I mean, no player has gone best game in his career against New England in Week 2. Now benched for Cody Kessler. This team is in shambles right now.
Yeah, we'll have to wait. Nobody knows who it's going to be this week. I would guess that it'll go back to Bortles, but if they make the switch, won't be shocked. You just have to wait till Doug Marrone tells you who's starting.
Matt Breida played 5 snaps, hurt his ankle, limped off the field, came back for a snap, limped off the field. Welcome to a week with Matt Breida.
Breida, look,
take some time.
We all admire the courage and the pain tolerance that you, in fact, have.
My dynasty team does not admire it.
I do not doubt at all the severity of your injuries. Just take a week off, my man.
Yeah.
just like a week. Jump in a hyperbaric chamber.
Maybe
spend
2.
the whole week there with 2. Yeah. A chamber inside of a chamber. And then just rest up, man. Rest up.
We need the Colonel to get action.
Oh, Colonel Mustard?
Colonel Mustard.
You're not on the trajectory to the playoffs. Take a week.
Yeah.
And no, but Raheem Mostert would be a beneficiary if Breida misses a week. Bilal Powell was ruled out with a neck injury. This could be Isaiah Crowell time. We don't know the length of the injury for Bilal Powell. We'll keep you up to date. LaShawn McCoy left the game with a head injury as well. I had somebody DM me this morning. They said, do you drop LaShawn McCoy now? No, this is not.
No.
This was not a – I think he looked at the box score and saw no points and thought McCoy played. He didn't play.
Yeah.
You don't drop him. He had 200-plus yards the previous 2 weeks. And then Marshawn Lynch is going to be out at least a month with the groin injury. If you have to play someone in Oakland, you play
Richard right now. I would lean to Jalen Richard.
Okay.
You don't want to say Krampus, but you want to say Krampus.
I just think that he's like I've still leaned Richard, but Martin in deeper leagues is worth the speculative ad, and it's disgusting.
Don't do it. There's no reason.
Well, he did not get signed in our league of record. He's just sitting there, as he should.
If he gets the work, he's someone you're not going to want to start.
Here's the and look, Mike is not wrong with the deeper league speculative ad because if a player starts, they start. But he's going to get the work that Marshawn Lynch gets. He is much worse than Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch was also very irrelevant because of the Oakland offense. So you're talking about the worst of a worse situation. Richard will spell him and others will spell him. Take it for what you will.
Yeah.
You want to sign him and play him? Be our guest.
Be.
But don't blame us.
Guest be our guest.
See, you can't say that around me, man.
I know.
I get triggered.
We're Disney guys.
Before we get into the stud muffins, I want to thank Harry's, longtime sponsor of the show. Look, Harry's founders know that a great shave comes down to great blades made with sharp, durable steel that lasts. This is not a hard sell. I've used Harry's for going on 3+ years now. Highest quality blades in the world, priced lower than the leading brands. That's the equation that works each and every time. They'll even give you a full refund if you don't love the shave, as long as you let them know within 30 days. They stand behind the quality of their blades, so they created a $13 value trial set that comes with everything you need for a close, comfortable shave. That's a weighted ergonomic handle, a 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel, a travel blade cover, and you can claim yours right now by going to harrys.com/footballers. What do I love about shaving with Harry's? Look, the price is great, the shave is great, the weight of the handle, everything. I love everything about Harry's. And right now our listeners can redeem their trial set at harrys.com/footballers. Make sure you go to harrys.com/footballers to redeem your offer and let them know you support the show.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
All right. We've got the, I guess the obvious one here. Patrick Mahomes, 28 for 39, 358 and 4 for 45 on the ground with some casual runs. Just some, they were so casual. They were just like
a little
jaunt through the river.
Through the river, because that's where people take their jogs. They go, you know where I'm going to jog?
You know the word I was looking for?
Inside of that river. What is this,
I was looking for the meadow. That's what I was looking for. There you go. And it came out with river.
Okay, sure.
Look, he could jaunt through the river if he wanted to.
He sure could.
He could do whatever he wanted.
A lot of people might think he could jaunt on the river. Just walk right on that water.
Yes. Andrew Luck, 17 for 23, very efficient. He had 4 touchdowns on 156 yards. Playing the Bills is fun.
Yeah. I mean, get your Patriots. Get them ready.
Yes.
Yeah, next week. Cam Newton, the comeback, 25 for 39, 269 and 2.
Oh, that sucked. I mean, that just – if you
Why did that suck exactly?
Here's why it sucked. It sucked if you were playing against Cam Newton, and it was great if you were playing Cam Newton, because when you watch the first 3 quarters of that game, you saw trash quarterback play. They were down 17-0. Carolina hadn't scored a point. I was playing against Cam Newton, and it was like, oh, great. My opposing quarterback has 1 point, and the game's almost over. He finished as like the 3rd best quarterback.
Yeah, that's Cam Newton for you.
Yeah, it is. I knew it the whole time. I'm like,
booty scooting.
At what? Oh, yes, he is
scooting that booty.
Booty scooting, Cam Newton.
Next week he has to play Baltimore.
You were trying to help my mood when you pointed out. You're like, hey, he's only the quarterback.
When your game was going on, I was like, hey, your opposing quarterback barely scored, but.
And I knew. I was like, yes.
Cam finds a way. He did again. Mitch Trubisky. Jason.
Hey, he was my stream of the week. Look, I know I put Mitch Trubisky on blast. And
he's responded.
He has responded. You're welcome,
on
Bears
blast?
fans. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
mean, what more can I? I
cremated him.
I put his urn near.
And you launched him up into space.
Yes, and then he
Viking
rained down
funeral.
fantasy points.
Yeah.
From that, he has converted, and you're welcome. But here's the thing:
you're taking credit.
Yes, I am the reason for Mitchell Trubisky playing well, because I called his
very
mother.
Similar to Deshaun Watson last year. He took credit for that too.
He's got the Post-it note on the mirror that says, always remember what Jason Moore said about me.
you darn right. You adapt and you change, and you don't do that just after. I mean, he was my stream of the week going into this week, not out of. He is a fantasy relevant option. Just everything you said, Mike, earlier about the Bears offense is coming true. I still 100% do not believe that Mitchell Trubisky is going to be a great NFL quarterback. I believe that. Now, will he be valuable for fantasy in this system? Sure, it looks like he's going to have plenty of good games. But
okay, so let's answer this question. You picked up Mitch Trubisky to stream him.
Yes.
He's got the Jets. He's got Buffalo, got Detroit. Are you holding on to Mitch Trubisky and just letting it ride?
Yeah, I'm starting him in all 3 of those matchups.
Papa needs a new pair of shoes.
I mean, those aren't scary matchups, and while you're in these flames, you stay in them.
He is NBA Jam officially on fire.
Yeah, 3 straight games. He can jaunt through a river. I guarantee it. Kareem Hunt. Let's move on to the running backs. He is a man. He is a man. 15 for 86 and a touchdown. Caught 2 touchdowns. He has turned his season around with the target share.
Yeah.
He started to catch passes again. And, look, he's a solid boy.
He's ferociously good.
Marlon Mack. 19 for 126 and 1. 2 for 33 and 1 on 3 targets. I want to speak to Mack briefly because he is not – I do not believe in pumping the brakes on Marlon Mack. I think that'd be foolish.
Yes.
But look, I just read to you the recipe against Buffalo, and Andrew Luck threw for 100 and something yards. This is not what you're going to get every single year. You do not get
Week.
Or every single
I love
week.
Michael Keaton.
You do not get 156 yards passing from Andrew Luck in a game where the Colts are leading from the 30-second mark and just get to run the football the entire game, where Mack is going to be that guy as opposed to Nyheim Hines getting reps. So you cannot expect this from Marlon Mack every single week.
No, I absolutely – I said before the season, I'm so excited to have watched and what I feel been proven that he's the best running back on the roster. I really think Marlon Mack is a good player. I like this, but I agree with your take, Andy, that – I mean, if they're getting boat raced, if they're down multiple scores like they were the week prior against the Jets, it's going to be Nyheim Hines. And if they're up multiple scores, it'll be Marlon Mack. So he is still somewhat of a matchup play, but coming forward,
he's a flex player for me.
Did we say that next week they play Oakland?
No, so Marlon Mack.
Marlon Mack will be a great start next week.
He will. James White was a monster again in the passing game, 8 for 57 and 2 on 10 targets. Latavius Murray showed up again in the absence of Dalvin Cook, 15 for 69 and 2 touchdowns. They play New Orleans next week. You can start Latavius Murray if Dalvin Cook is out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the story.
I mean, 49 of his yards came on the 2 touchdown runs, but they still happened.
Now, Jason, I need to know, do you want me to use the drop for this next player during the Rising Stars segment, or do you want me to use it now?
Oh,
Why not both?
Why not both?
Carry on my wayward son.
Breakout.
Kerryon Johnson.
Breakout. Wait,
19.
Is that supposed to be System of a Down?
Yeah, it was.
That's terrible.
It was terrible.
19 for 158. What a game.
Yeah.
Kerryon Johnson, your start of the week, your start of the year, your
My man crush. Look, Kerryon Johnson.
59% of the snaps.
He is a great running back. I think I saw a stat. Was it JJ that tweeted it out? It was something like Kerryon has 66 to 69 carries on the season. All the other
Might have been Barrett. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. All the other Lions running backs had near the same carries, but they amassed 190-something yards, and he's at 444. Stop it. Just give him the workload.
Has to feel good, doesn't it?
It feels great. And the nice thing is Amir Abdullah was in the game. So it wasn't like Theo Riddick being gone meant that now it was only 2 backs.
It mostly was.
I mean, yes.
Amir Abdullah probably had, 5 snaps? So
Amir Abdullah had less work than Theo Riddick would have had if he was out there. I will grant
for
you that.
sure.
Yes.
For sure.
But
you're trying to stifle any concerns that Riddick comes back and Kerryon's irrelevant? Well, no.
Exactly.
They're not dumb enough to take Kerryon out permanently.
He was my start of the week before the Theo Riddick news happened.
Kerryon's still going to lose goal line work.
Yes, he will.
And he's still going to lose third down work. But he's Kerryon Johnson.
But
he's rushed for over 100 yards twice this year, which no Lions running back has done in years. So this was a monstrous game. He's a start every week guy. He's got Seattle, Minnesota, Chicago. So we'll see how that goes. But no, great game.
Yep.
Dion Lewis, 13 for 91.
Oh, hey, Dion. Welcome back.
Yeah, this was a nice offensive performance by Tennessee in London this week. They have the bye next week. If Dion Lewis is sitting on your waiver wire, this performance happens. Do you care with the bye next week? Are you going to clog a roster spot with Dion Lewis?
Yeah, I think you should. It's hard to. I mean, there's
you're going to ping pong back and forth between.
Dion Lewis is a
Henry
good running
came
back,
through too,
but I actually believe in Dion Lewis versus.
But
I don't believe in Derrick Henry.
Mike, you couldn't believe in anybody in this offense after last week.
Correct.
But are you in the same boat? Are you going to sign him with the bye week, or are you going to put your fab dollars somewhere else?
I would rather put my fab dollars on like Marlon Mack.
Oh, sure.
Because I can play him this week. If I might put in one of those, just a low bid, just in case no one else is trying to get Dion Lewis because he's on the bye week.
In many ways, this was a week of redemption for players that had expectations before the season, then
It
disappointed, and now have relevance again. Dion Lewis, Tariq Cohen, Kenyon Drake, Lamar Miller. Tariq Cohen delivering on the start of the week, 8 for 69 and a touchdown on 12 targets, an essential part of that offense. You love it when a running back can have 6 carries for 14 yards and still put up a top 15 finish on the week. But Kenyon Drake,
This is beware.
Yeah.
Beware
it really
of
is.
Kenyon Drake. Look,
6 carries.
6 carries, 4 receptions. He had 8 targets. I mean,
10 touches.
You got to love that target volume, but 10 touches. This is who Kenyon Drake is. You play him, you get the big 40-yard touchdown, you're very happy for fantasy purposes. If you don't get that, you are cursing yourself for starting Kenyon
And this
Drake.
is why it's frustrating to be a Dolphins fan, why Adam Gase is a butthole, is because if you have a guy that can so frequently rip off a 40-yard explosive play for a touchdown, you have to give him more opportunities to do that. I mean, it's just nonsensical to me to say, well, he could do that because we give him 4 carries this game. He had 4 chances.
Lamar Miller, 22 for 100 and a touchdown against Jacksonville. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders. Let's move on to the wideouts. We talked about him Thursday night game, monster game. A lot of Emmanuel Sanders trade rumors. You need to monitor those. I think there's a chance that Sanders or Demaryius Thomas are gone by the trade deadline, which is the 30th at noon Eastern. So we'll keep you up to date.
I would just say there's no chance of Emmanuel Sanders' value going up at the trade deadline if he's traded. If he's traded, he might go to a better team, to a better quarterback, but a worse situation. He's the clear-cut one right now. So he's a guy coming off of another monster game that I would at least be looking to shop to see if you could get high value. I'm not trying to get rid of Emmanuel Sanders at all. I love him. You know, if he's not traded, he's going to be great. But if you could capitalize on that huge week, trade him, and then it turns out he gets traded, I think you're going to have a huge win on your hands.
Wow. Let's talk about John Brown, start of the week.
Who?
7 for 134 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Jason, start of the week. Adam Thielen doing Adam Thielen things. Is he the best wide receiver in fantasy football?
Yes.
No. Antonio
Yes.
Brown.
Would you trade Thielen for anybody? You'd trade him for Brown?
I would trade Thielen for Antonio Brown, especially now that Antonio Brown's passes by
Yeah,
him.
I guess that's
be the only one?
The only other guy. They're in. It used to be Antonio Brown's tier, and then you had Beckham and Julio. Like Antonio Brown lived on his own in his own castle, but Adam Thielen's got a wing.
He's
now.
moved in.
Yeah,
I agree because it's not just the touchdowns. It's the quantity of targets and receptions every single game. Even Antonio Brown, who's had great success in the last few weeks, it's 5-6, 5-6, 5-6 catches. Jarvis Landry, 10 for 97 and a touchdown on 15 targets.
baby. Jarvis week.
Delivered once I traded him. Thanks. And then Tyreek Hill doing Tyreek things. Despite the long touchdown drop, he ended up with one later in the game. Michael Thomas came back around. Danny Amendola had a nice week. T.Y. Hilton, 2 touchdowns on 4 targets. Look, again, they did not have to throw the ball a lot. It was nice to see him recover his value that he lost in yardage with some touchdowns. Devin Funchess, a nice game. At the tight end position, Trey Burton, monster week, 9 for 126 and a touchdown on 11 targets. We'll talk about him shortly. George Kittle, 5 for 98 and a touchdown. He's a must start every week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
In this tight end landscape, George Kittle's top half.
Do you guys care about Michael Roberts with 2 touchdowns for
No.
Matthew Stafford?
3. He had 3 targets. It just happened to be the play design. They found something they could exploit.
What about Chris Herndon, New York Jets tight end, second straight week with a score, 4 for 42 and a touchdown, just missed the second score on 7 targets, and you obviously have Enunwa and you have Pryor now out of that system, but it's Minnesota. Did they go after a different area against Minnesota?
Yeah, Herndon's he showed up now back-to-back weeks for fantasy football, 56 yards with a score against the Colts.
Yeah.
42 and a score. I mean, he has to be on your radar, at least. I don't know if I'm buying in, even though he's technically heating up according to the rules. But I don't. Jason, are you bought in at all?
I'm mildly interested. I would rather have Ben Watson than Chris Herndon.
Okay.
Rising Stars of the Week.
Man, I feel like we've talked about these guys already. But
Yeah.
Mike, your rising star this week?
Sure. My official rising star of the week is
Mack.
Yeah, it's Marlon Mack, and he has proved Jason to be correct, at least for a week. He still is 100% game script reliant. I strongly believe in that. But next week, if you're looking for a spot starter, and we're in those bye weeks where people are, or sometimes your number one running back the night before the game decides that he's going to take a week off. Melvin, dang it. But Marlon Mack, I mean, he has juice if he gets in open space, he makes things happen. It's on a higher powered offense. Against Oakland, he's going to be a great play.
Jason's going with we've heard you talk about Kerryon Johnson
he's been
before.
in this segment before.
Yes, of course he has.
Mm-hmm.
How do you rise twice?
It's so high in the sky, Mike.
Here's what we're going to do for your rising star of Kerryon Johnson this week, because he had to be in there. So I'm going to play a new game with you.
Okay.
Would you trade Kerryon Johnson for?
Oh, I love this game. Wait,
this is your rising star.
Trade Kerryon away?
What would it take for you to trade him away?
Oh man, see, this one hurts. I feel like, well, who would I trade for Kerryon? But all right, let's play.
Would you trade LaShawn McCoy for Kerryon Johnson?
Oh, so we're doing it my way. Heck yeah,
we'll do it your way. Would you trade David Johnson for Kerryon Johnson?
Oh man, mercy me.
Oh man.
Oh goodness. Would I trade David Johnson for Kerryon Johnson?
I'm a no. I would not do that.
I do not believe the Arizona Cardinals offense will get fixed. But while it's been putrid, David Johnson has still been a top 15 running back. I would stick with David Johnson.
Would you trade Nick Chubb for Kerryon Johnson?
In a heartbeat, I would trade Nick Chubb for Kerryon Johnson. I think the Detroit Lions offense is a tier or two above the Cleveland Browns offense. Yes.
Would you trade Mark Ingram for Kerryon Johnson?
No, I would not trade. I mean, you're still talking tiers of offenses, right? I want the Saints.
Would you take this opportunity to flip Kerryon Johnson off of the big game for Mark Ingram, who disappointed? Even though we knew he was going to be somewhat disappointing against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, it stands to reason. If I would not trade Mark Ingram for Kerryon, I would trade Kerryon for Mark Ingram.
but sometimes you get an emotional attachment to a player.
No, I agree. But the reason that Kerryon is my rising star is because I don't want it to go away when Theo comes back, not on the field, in your mind.
Ain't nobody running away from Kerryon.
He's a starting fantasy option in your lineup every week from here on out. He had 19 carries to LeGarrette Blount's 10. He is going to be the lion's share. I've said it.
Nice one.
I've said it since before the season. He is a second half player. Well, guess what? The bye week is past. The second half is here. Carry on, my friends.
Would you trade Kerryon Johnson for Mark Walton?
Oh, hey. Karen, what's up, man? No,
that's just pandering.
Yes, it was. All right, my rising star is Trey Burton. Look, it's been a bit of an acclimation process, but he switched teams, new quarterback, new offense, but Trey Burton now has 4 scores in 6 games. He's got 4 scores.
6 games ago.
Double-digit fantasy points in 4 of 6, turning into the asset we hoped, and what I loved was the quantity of targets, the involvement in the offense this past week. Trey Burton is a must-start tight end. I think people were bailing out of concern for Trubisky.
I had bailed out.
You had pumped the brakes on him, I think.
Yeah,
so,
I did.
I guess we all make mistakes, don't we?
Well, I don't know. I'm still not bought in.
Okay.
You need to buy in, Mike.
Yeah, well, all right.
He's a talented player. They paid a lot of money to.
I love Burton.
Well, and this is, I guess, this is something important for people to realize and remember, is that don't make a season-long conclusion out of 1 or 2 weeks, no matter who you are, in either direction. Look, we like to have fun on this show, so we like to toot our own horn when we get something right, and we like to make fun of one another when one of us gets something wrong. But this is fantasy football. I mean, the rookie running backs looked like they were struggling, and then now Sony Michel hurt, but suddenly it was Sony Michel and Nick Chubb and Kerryon Johnson have relevance. You say Trey Burton is not what you hoped. Well, it's week 7, guys. 4 touchdowns. He's been a top tight end, and if this trajectory continues to the second half of the year, all of a sudden, you're proven
Yes.
right on a guy. So you've got to give some of these things some time to carry themselves out.
Absolutely.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
Black Bortles.
No, we're starting with the wide receivers.
Oh.
Yeah.
And we're starting with this.
Walk of shame.
Can they break your stride, Andy?
I'm starting with Jermaine Kearse here, my walk of shame. Guys, I don't feel good.
No.
No.
And we can attest to this, Foot Clan. We've all seen tilts. We've all been face to face. We've stared down the devil. But I've never seen my man just liquefy into the couch. Like his leagues dominated on Sunday, and all he cared about was stupid Jermaine Kearse.
Because apparently that's all the people cared about.
I feel bad. I feel real bad. And look, I had a Justin Tucker moment on this show.
Oh.
And I missed on Jermaine Kearse. And I still feel like the process was right, but I think putting him, pivoting to him as the start of the week, I'm sorry. I didn't know how many people out there were dying for me to say his name to start him, but I've just had so much feedback, people disappointed. I am sorry. It was a perfect storm of suck for that offense. Last week, Darnold completed 18 passes to wide receivers, and that included Emmanuel and Pryor. Those guys were gone. Jermaine Kearse last week had 9 receptions. This week, Darnold completed a total of 5 passes to wide receivers. 5. He had a QBR of 5.9.
What? Is that true?
He completed 17 of 42 passes. So Jermaine Kearse played 90% of snaps and goosed. This was just real bad. And look, if you started him, I'm sorry. This is show 633 in our history. This is one of the top times this is the worst I've felt about, like Mike said, my team's killed it on Sunday. I was melting into the couch.
You were depressed.
Because I just wanted Kearse to deliver for listeners, and sometimes we get it wrong because basically we can't see the future. And this relationship with you guys, the listener, it's never changed. We try to find opportunities. We try not to be vanilla about everybody. We try to find the right storylines and ultimately present the case for you to decide whether you want to play those guys or not. And I thought that, this one hurts more because I said to go spend your fab on him too.
Right.
That's why it hurts more.
It wasn't putting him in from your bench. It was you signed him.
Correct.
You bought him.
It was, hey, go get him, and then if you need him, you can play him. And it was a miss. It was a miss.
Yep.
And I don't want to compound that miss by saying double down and keep him on your roster. I think you can cut him.
You think?
Well, look, if you spend fab on him, that's the question.
Yeah.
Right? I
No,
don't think it's a foregone conclusion that everybody out there who spent $10 or $15 of fab on him
I just think
says,
I
let's just hang on to him.
I feel like people should have seen this coming. Whenever the fantasy reaper decides to go with the guy whose name is Kearse.
Yeah, you've been
Oh,
cursed. You've
I
been
mean,
cursed.
come on.
So-
this is really on you.
Sure. Yeah, let's blame them.
No.
No, but that was obviously a big poop of the week for me because I believed in him wholeheartedly.
He wasn't alone in the. I mean, Allen Robinson,
Pooped his pants.
pooped
1 for
his
4.
pants. You had Tyler Boyd. Everyone waiting for. Tyler Boyd's been just on fire, playing great. This was the perfect matchup. We talked about it in the beginning of the show. The Bengals as a core. I mean, it was like if you didn't have A.J. Green, Joe Mixon sucked. Tyler Boyd sucked. Everyone was going, where is Tyler Boyd? First half, not even a target.
No, and then look, Kerryon apparently hurt Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones because they both struggled. Both of them pooped their pants. Kenny Golladay, are you concerned, Mike?
No, he also had a touchdown called back. I think this was just a product of the game script because what's weird is Kenny Golladay 2 targets, Marvin Jones only 4. I really thought it would be a better day for all of the pass catchers in Detroit, but it just didn't work out.
I think a lot of the questions that people are going to have with the poopers from today are, can you drop them? When it's someone like
Sure.
Corey Davis, Marquise Goodwin, Pierre Garçon, probably not owned, but he stunk. Robbie Anderson. Look, there wasn't a wide receiver that performed for New York. So Robbie Anderson was 3 for 44 on 10 targets.
10 targets.
He's probably the one you want. But
Is there one you want? This is a Doug Martin situation.
The week before did.
He might have the opportunity, but I just don't think you are ever going to know when to start a guy like that. I would rather roster people that you could be more confident.
Well, what about Marvin Jones, guys? I mean, Marvin Jones has really been a tier down, a step down this year, and he hasn't had that monster game. 3 for 29 on 4 targets. This is, if he catches a touchdown, you're kind of okay with him, and then if he doesn't, you're screwed.
Yeah, that's his thing. Is, I mean, for the first 4 weeks he was a 50-yard guy, but you do have a pretty good chance of catching a touchdown or getting a fantasy touchdown for Marvin Jones. I'm not dropping Marvin Jones, but it's reallocate. He's a wide receiver 3.
Mike,
with upside.
I'd love you to speak on a player by the name of Antonio Callaway.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, I really thought he would. I thought he would do something.
Now, what is the opposite?
The Foot Clan listened to me. Don't worry. Nobody played him.
To us, Jason.
Yeah. Oh, yes,
to
yes,
us.
yes.
For 2 weeks, I've been saying you don't put him in your lineup unless he shows you a week of glory.
My man, Antonio Callaway.
Cannot catch the ball.
No. He 100% netted all of us a glorious Nick Chubb touchdown. So thank you, Antonio Callaway, for coming through.
That is true. He can draw pass interference.
Can you start any Jacksonville wide receiver ever?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Who's the quarterback?
Blake Bortles.
If it's Bortles, no. If it's Kessler, Moncrief had another solid game, but no, I'm not going to try and
QB poopers.
I got a snake, man.
Blake Bortles, horrible, atrocious. What are the odds that Blake Bortles wins somebody a fantasy title with some week 15, 16 performances?
He's 60%.
At least, yeah, it's pretty high.
I mean, I absolutely think Blake Bortles wins people fantasy championship. He does it every single year because this is the time of year when it's oh, yeah, okay, he does suck. He's terrible. He gets, he's going to get dropped everywhere. He's benched in his own team, and then he'll come back and have monster games later because that's the definition of bortling.
If Fournette comes back and they get their defense on track, and Bortles was still the starter at that point in time, you probably got a better option that got you to the playoffs. Andy Dalton, terrible game. We know it. 15 for 29 for 148 and 1. I think he got too locked in on AJ Green, and it just cost him. Not
too worried. He's got Tampa Bay next. I'm going to keep him on my roster. I'll play him next week.
Running back, poopers. Bad game for Ezekiel Elliott. This means pretty much nothing to you as a fantasy owner. You play Ezekiel Elliott every week. It was just a rotten game, and it cost you. Ingram, he got the short end of the stick on the Kamara split this week.
Yep.
Including around the goal line. He was only 12 for 32. Baltimore is the best defense in football, in my opinion, right now. And so you take your lump, but he has to go into Minnesota next week.
Yeah, it could be another rough week, but you just hold on to Mark Ingram. Better days are coming.
Corey Clement, maybe the biggest pooper of the week. 8 for 6. Barely did anything. Faces Jacksonville next week. What do you even make of him? Because Josh Adams got snaps in the backfield for Philadelphia. Wendell Smallwood had a ton of snaps. This is a mess.
Yeah, it's absolutely a mess, and it's now for Corey, it's turned into touchdown or bust, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, Wendell Smallwood had 9 carries. Corey Clement had 8 carries. There wasn't a whole lot of offense.
But that's what they were the game script was. If you didn't watch the game, I mean, the Eagles were in control of the game for the vast majority of the time.
So I agree.
Until that final drive.
I agree that they were in control. They were up 17-0 going into the fourth quarter, so it's a positive game script, but it wasn't going well. They weren't dominating the Eagles from an offensive outpouring standpoint, and I think the Panthers. And the Panthers are a good defense. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form getting rid of Corey Clement or
Well, I'm not getting rid of him. This is a confidence situation.
Yeah.
We said it during the show last week. Clement feels capped.
Yes.
And then it was proven by the Josh Adams snaps this week. So you cannot
Are you gonna play him against Jacksonville?
I'm not.
I think he's on the flex conversation for Jacksonville, yes.
All right.
Full sit for me. I think either he's still banged up or they don't trust him to the degree that they want to make him the guy. So I'm going to put him in the Callaway category.
Wow.
From now on,
the Callaway?
By Callaway category, I mean prove it until you prove it, you don't get a start.
All right.
But he has proved it. Callaway has never done jack squat.
He hasn't proved it.
11 for 43 and a touchdown the week prior when he was on limited snaps. He's had another touchdown.
That touchdown saved that fantasy production. That's not does that prove a whole rest of season production for him?
Oh, I mean we've seen it. If you go back last year, we've seen Corey Clement be a quality player.
I don't agree with you.
We haven't seen Callaway be a quality player.
Clement last year was he was a bit part player that occasionally had a touchdown, had very limited snaps. I don't think that Josh Adams would not have had an uprising in snaps to that degree, and Small would have the high leverage game on the line, okay? They're coming down to win the game, trying to come back on Carolina. Corey Clement's nowhere to be found. Take that for what you will.
Yep.
Do you pick up Josh Adams?
No.
No, I think it's just a terrible situation.
I'm glad you said no. I was going to call you out on your logic.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Thought you drafted him?
I thought I got him.
You're going to call me out on the hypothetical logic I did not have. Jordan Reed, Kyle Rudolph, boo. Bad weeks. Jordan Reed, 2 for 43, despite the fact they had no pass catchers in Washington.
Yeah, I was going to say bad week or led the team in receiving yards. Both are true.
Watching Alex Smith play football is painful. That is all.
It's
won.
insanity.
Right?
But it's crazy that we've gone from Alex Smith of last year to
top 5 fantasy quarterback.
I mean, it's
Andy Reid.
Absolutely just reverted to everything that he was before.
It's painful.
Yes.
And then Kyle Rudolph at this point, can you drop Kyle Rudolph?
No, you can't drop Kyle Rudolph.
Now, what if I said a different player with a different name with the same stat line? Would you still say that? And that's not saying I'm not trying to catch you in a logic.
Before this week where he busted, he was the 9th ranked tight end in fantasy football, and he's on a good offense. So I would say no.
8.652. That's his last.
Tight ends suck. I mean, I'm not saying like
I get it.
great.
I get it.
I wouldn't drop him unless there's a surefire upgrade, but there's not.
It seems that when Cousins is deciding who to pass the ball to,
it's always Adam Thielen.
Always Adam Thielen. Although Stephon Diggs had 14 targets this week. Do not forget about him.
What did he have, like 33 yards?
He was bad.
Well, he had eight receptions and limited total yardage. But 8. All I'm saying is I would look at Diggs as a possible buy low because of that target share each and every week. And Thielen's overwhelming the minds of everybody, and Thielen's amazing. But Stephon Diggs with 14 targets tells me you target a player like that.
Yeah.
Target the targets, man.
Ooh.
All right, we're going to answer a couple of mailbag questions before we close out the show.
Mailbag.
Mailbag, oh yeah!
All right, you got a question, go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click the Submit a Question button, or dial the voicemail hotline 302-464-TFFB. First question here from Tim in New Hampshire. I traded Jordan Howard. I got him off the waiver wire from a dummy who dropped him.
All right.
And Kenyon Drake, so he traded Howard and Drake for Dalvin Cook. Love the podcast. Thanks. Say hi to your mother for me.
No, I like it.
You do like it?
I like it a lot. I
Really?
Get that. Yes, because Howard, look how many points
Howard the suck?
Oh.
I mean, the Howard puns.
That one is bad.
We didn't bring in our Monday Pun Day. Brooks?
Wait, hold on. What's Monday Pun Day?
Last week when I asked
I was gone.
When I asked the Footcast for metaphors and I got 250 puns instead.
Sure.
Pun of the week.
We need some of those for tomorrow, Foot Clan.
What Dalvin Cook could become is far greater than I think the sum of Howard and Drake.
Howard and Drake are players that you can start every week and be okay, but they can also dive bomb your team. I do agree that if Dalvin Cook waits until he's healthy, if Dalvin Cook was healthy, if he were healthy, he would be very valuable. You've seen Latavius Murray be valuable the last few weeks, and Dalvin Cook has been great. I worry so much about the injury. I mean, I was dealing with that, and with Fournette, it's like,
well, you always say you want the best player in a trade.
right.
So the question is how confident are you that Dalvin Cook's the best player in that trade based on the injury situation?
Confident, but wouldn't you – it stands to reason that rostering Jordan Howard and Kenny Drake is, in fact, an injury to your fantasy roster.
I don't know. This is – if we're sitting here on this show and talking at length about having any running back on your roster possible, you want to roster Marlon Mack and you want to roster who did you say, Doug Martin?
I said deep stash. I didn't say look, Kenny
I know
Drake
you
over
love
Martin.
We know you love Doug Martin.
It's true.
But you could do worse than having Drake and
Yes.
Howard on your roster.
The concern is just with the amount of points that the Bears are putting up in the past 3 weeks, and Howard is not performing. He had the touchdown this week, and if I recall right, he had two. One was called back. But
Stashing injured players has hurt you this year.
It has.
If it was Devonta Freeman or Leonard Fournette or even to this point
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook or Lev Bell, the waiting
Right.
game at running back has
It's
hurt
not
you.
paying off.
So maybe it's just stinging a little bit.
And similar to what I was saying a couple weeks ago with Fournette, that it looked like, hey, he's having trouble. He's re-aggravated it, and they had that bye coming up in week 9 that's a little scary. Like it's so beneficial for the team to hold him out. Dalvin Cook has a week 10 bye. So let's say he comes back and he's just completely fine right now, then okay, you're solid. But if he comes back this week against New Orleans, he's not getting you're not going to start him. If he comes back this week, you do not start that player.
And then you're in the buys. I do this trade if I am 6-1.
Right.
Because I can afford it.
And you better have other running backs so you can start right now. You cannot make this trade getting rid of two startable running backs to say.
He said he scooped Howard off the waiver wire.
Sure, but that
So
doesn't
he's
mean
got
that that doesn't always mean that he might need Howard. If he's trading this and he thinks, okay, Dalvin Cook's going to my starting lineup, watch out because you might not be able to start him this week. And then if that happens, if they hold him out one more week, then they get his bye. But then that's 3 weeks where you don't get to play Dalvin.
It's frightening to me. Gage in Vermont, Illinois. Apparently that's a state inside of a state.
Wow.
Is Rule 86 still in the rule book, Mike?
Great question.
He's got a grimace the size of Vermont on his face.
There's been an amendment to the rule that says Rule 86, you start Jordan Reed if Jordan Reed is healthy. See Exhibit A, if Kirk Cousins is his quarterback.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. Nope. That is the correct answer.
Oh, it's not likely he'll be his quarterback anytime soon.
No, it's very unlikely.
He's
This
been on
just in, Kyle Rudolph has been traded for Jordan Reed. No. All right, last much more important question. Sean in Washington, why is fantasy football not fair?
Easy. This is easy because fantasy football is life, and life is not fair.
Oh,
Drop it. Drop the
Enjoy
mic,
the
Mike.
show.
Hey, make sure you check out draft.com/ballers if you're going to play some DFS this upcoming weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.